All right, welcome to another episode of the Tales from the Crypt podcast. I'm your host, Marty Bent. No, I'm not your host, Marty Bent. I'm Brady Swenson, host of the Swan Signal Live podcast. We're taking over Marty's studio here at the Bitcoin Commons because today is Bitcoin Takeover Day, hosted by event planner Parker Lewis. Great work, man. This was fun.
Yeah, is there a live link that we should tweet this out to?
Yeah, for sure. We're on Spaces at Swan Bitcoin right now. Okay. And I'll drop...
Did you tag me in it?
Yes, you should be tagged in it. I'll make sure...
Hold on.
There we go.
Let's get... There it is.
Found it? All right, cool.
Wait. Did you find it?
Social media shilling.
We'll riff. You retweet it. And then
We're retweeted.
Okay.
We're good. We're live.
Yeah, so this is fitting. The Swan Signal Live takeover of the TFTC studios here at the Bitcoin Commons after Bitcoin had to take over of South by Southwest.
That's right.
No Bitcoin content during South by Southwest.
Right. No Bitcoin content. And what do Bitcoiners do? They fix things. And I think I honestly was a little bit naive. Bit off a little bit more than I could chew. We got 25 speakers to come. More than 50% either flew in or drove in from Austin. And we had 7 to 8 hours of content today. And honestly, every single person that spoke is contributing to Bitcoin and in a real way. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the most productive and kind of most, I don't want to even say eclectic, but the diversity of skill sets of focus and what they're doing. So I thought it turned out great, but I'm eating my own dog food.
And we closed with a massive flourish of pro-Texas mining and, wells and oil and energy and all that stuff with Griffin. I thought it was great because, there was, like you said, there was a lot of different stuff to talk about. Obviously, I was here talking about the political angle and that stuff. We had people talking about lightning. We had people talking about a little bit of everything. And now we're just staring at calves through the frosted glass as we're depriving ourselves from the happy hour, I guess.
Yeah, but you don't drink anyways.
I don't drink anyways. It's just an excuse. I drink ginger ale. That's kind of my drug of choice in that regard.
Straight edge ratio.
I've been trying to do that less. We have gotten comments. We need to frost the bottom.
Yeah.
That was a mistake.
It's okay. Well, listen, this is my first time at the Bitcoin Commons.
Welcome.
Thank you.
What did you guys think of the Bitcoin Commons? So Swan is a sponsor of the Bitcoin Commons. Thank you.
Proud to be a sponsor of the Bitcoin Commons.
Thank you to Swan. But maybe give people an impression of the Bitcoin Commons. Yeah,
it's right in downtown Austin on Congress Avenue, which is appropriate, I think, and the name too, Bitcoin Commons. It all calls back to sort of this revolutionary kind of mentality or vibe that's going on with Bitcoin right now. And Austin is right at the center of that. It's sort of the Schelling point we were talking about this morning with Pierre and with Bitstein. That I think it's cool that they sort of started that Schelling point process when they were at school at UT, started the Nakamoto Institute 8 years ago. And here we are now hanging out in the Bitcoin Commons just down the road with dozens of Bitcoin companies and dozens of amazing speakers and a couple hundred people, Bitcoiners here listening to what's going on. So it's inspiring, man, what's going on here. I love the space and I love the location. I applaud Unchained for putting it all together and for you putting it all together. It's really cool.
Yeah, I think one of the things that people don't realize that aren't coming to these BitDevs meetups and these Austin meetups is Parker is really like the guy in Braveheart, waving the flag. Yeah. And he's like showing everybody where to come to, right? It's like he does such a good job of being an ambassador for Texas and being an ambassador for Austin. And Austin's a very happening city. There's a lot of cool stuff here. It's been like a tech mecca, the last couple of years. You're seeing people leave Silicon Valley and all that stuff. And they're starting up new businesses here. It's a better business climate, better taxes, better brisket, all those things that are really, truly important, I think, to people. Hard money, hard food. But it's like, you do such a great job of bringing people in, and Unchained does such a great job with client services and stuff like that, that it's like the team's good. And I come here about once a month for these types of things. And I'm really excited because this is like a huge upgrade over the last facility that you guys were in.
Yeah,
It's great. You guys are you guys are definitely moving up. Now we're on the second floor. You know what I mean? That's a thing. We have a view a little bit,
Well, so we wanted to be in I don't want to say we wanted to be in a building that was pre-Federal Reserve, but this building is. And we
Nice.
really didn't want, we were adamant about not being in a fiat building.
So not like an old glass.
Yeah, so I can't say that like we were looking for pre-Federal Reserve, but I walked into a lot of buildings downtown. I was like, this is soulless. We are not going to do our best work. We're not going to be inspired in a soulless building. But this is at the center of the city. It is built 1910, great aesthetics. It is a massive upgrade to our last space, which we basically took a really small footprint for bit devs, and we would clear the whole thing out and bring in the whole community. And we'd fill it brim to brim. And that when we decided to do the Commons, we saw this space, which is it's not our office, it's the Bitcoin Commons, it's the community space, but the inception of it was bit devs is so important that we need to ensure the continuity of bit devs. And post COVID, what we found that the ability to do that was being in control of the space, and that when we thought about this space as the new home for bit devs, it required that we would need a far bigger program to justify this space. And that really inspired an expansion of the vision to the Bitcoin Commons of bringing in other companies. We've gone to great lengths to make sure like this is not just Unchained sidecar. But it really started by seeing how important it is for the community to come together.
Yeah, I think like I go to a lot of meetups all over the place. And for me, one of the reasons why I mentally model this one is because it feels like a membership. The people that are here are part of multiple layers of the stack, and having people today like NVK and, talk about on the hardware wallet side, then you have the Lightning side, and you have all these things, people come together because the draw is there. And that's what you need. You need the full stack of opinions, the full stack of experiences, the full stack of skill sets. And I think that's like really a vital thing that you can do with a venue like this, because like we're saying, you can fit 150 people in here or something like that.
Easy.
Plus, you guys have offices.
200.
Well, chairs, right?
Yeah,
chairs. If we go no chairs,
Way too many chairs.
we go no chairs next time. But
Pierre was pretty upset about all the chairs.
Yeah. Well, he wore a tie too, so it was like he looked like he was running for office today. He had the governor vibe going on.
You think I got competition?
I don't know, but I don't know if he might run for governor and you would be the mayor, right?
Yeah.
And then
I probably prefer that.
We got to figure out like the real alliance though politically to see who's going to do what,
Well, I'm just saying, and the actual mayor actually came.
Yeah.
And Senator Lummis was here.
And Senator Lummis was here.
Yep.
And when I become mayor, I will shut down Congress and turn it into a park. So I think a lot of Bitcoiners are going to get behind that.
The state Congress?
Yeah, like the Congress Street right there.
Okay. Yeah.
Between the river and the Capitol. So
it's going to be like a big skate park?
Well, you want a skate park, we can build a skate park. I was thinking like grass and shit. But, that's what I'm promising. I'm promising aesthetics.
Like a mall, like a national mall.
Like a mall.
Yeah. Okay, I can get behind that.
Yeah.
I like that. I'm trying to spend more time
I'm just
out here.
spitballing here.
Yeah,
I'm just throwing out ideas.
Yeah,
I dig it.
Yeah, I'm into it. I mean, I'm trying to. I still have my Texas driver's license. So I'm still
For a reason.
For a reason. I'm
still
keeping it real.
Texan.
Yeah, I still have my place in Dallas.
Yeah.
All that stuff. But the thing that's interesting for me is, like, as you're coming out and listening to people that are really experts in one of the niches of Bitcoin, right? So whether it's Lightning, which I'm not like a Lightning guru, I'm not a programmer, I'm not a dev or whatever, and you have Rockstar talking about, like integrating the like BIP21 where they're trying to like wash all the different Lightning addresses around so that you can have a Bitcoin native layer 1 or a Lightning layer 2, getting those things together. I'm just sitting here thinking, yeah, that's what people really need. They need the ease of use, like, because to them PayPal is easy, right? So we need to make Bitcoin easy. And now we have these people coming here kind of forcing themselves to get together. So you have Cash App, you have Strike or Spiral or Block or whatever that is. And they're actually having these conversations like out in front of everybody. And it really is a much better thing than just having this conversation in Twitter Spaces or whatever, because now people can follow up and build businesses and build ideas and kind of bridge these things. And I think that's what's so fascinating about the Bitcoin space where it is right now, is that there's still so much to do in that regard that people can like just on a whim just get together and do it.
Yeah, and I think that
or just on a whim open
one
the door.
thing we got an on-air sign, and people burst in with on-air signs. This is cool. It's cool. But not only like today when we had NVK, Lisa Nygett from Blockstream, and Rockstar Dev from Strike, on a panel talking about Lightning protocols and what they're doing. Or actually, we had Miles Suter.
Yeah.
NVK spoke on a different panel. But it's not only having that discussion in front of other people, but that bringing those people together and having them know each other rather than just being on Twitter and having avatars, that when things do come up, that, we like to say there isn't a Bitcoin community, but this is a community.
Yeah.
And the more people that get together, interact, share ideas, but just have familiarity, that the ability to collaborate only increases from there.
Here's what's interesting. I hung out with 3 Swans today, 3 other members of the Swan team.
Oh, awesome.
Hardly ever get to see anybody except for big conferences or events like this because we're so distributed around the world. And we have 4 here in Austin, actually. 3 of them were able to make it today. And it was amazing just to have that connection, right, with people you work with every day. And we went out and had a beer, about an hour ago, and we were having this conversation about how there is a huge difference and need to meet in real life. Like, it's great to work remotely. There's tons of positive about it. But even if you just meet once, one time and share like a real human experience in meet space, it changes your online relationship moving forward. Yeah. So having a location like this, like I met Andrew Polestra today. I've never met him before. We've interacted a little bit, but now I have like a genuine connection with him.
And he's not on Twitter, so there's not you don't have access to some of these people. So when we went to this whole like remote work from home thing or distributed workforce, whatever you want to call it, it produces like pretty good results for a while. But then we are social creatures. We do need to have that in real life meet space, shake hands, look somebody in the eye, say hi, ask questions. Hey, how are your kids? How are your dogs? Like, what's going on? And I think it's not too hippy dippy, to say that like you do actually need that to get to the next level.
Right.
And especially when you have this, I'd say, competitive edge, which a lot of people do that are in the space in general, whether you're a miner or a dev or a trader or whatever, you do want to get with the other people just to talk to them. And then that might spark something. There's a little bit of like the flint rocks hitting together, and Gideon at the end was like, hey, I want to do this thing where like I teach people stuff. If anybody knows how to like set up an academy or set up like a program, like let's go. Yeah. And it was just really funny because that is the spirit of the Bitcoin community. Like the real Bitcoin community is like open, and they want to build stuff together. And that's what inspires me, because it's not like my day-to-day job, but it does take up a big part of my focus, a big part of my life. And I'm inspired by all those things to listen to these guys that are, running these big mining operations, and just learn about the grind and the focus, and how almost everybody that's working in the space, regardless of price action, which is what so many people talk about, they have the throttle all the way down. They're being strategic about where they're steering and what they're looking at and stuff like that. But whether it's product development or, deploying ASICs on an oil well, or building an on-grid facility, or building a substation like Riot's substation, which is like massive. They're talking about having like 1,000 people work on it or something like that. That's all inspiring for me. So I'm like, oh, cool. I got my couple hundred ASICs and I want to just, I mean, and just go even more all in if that's possible. So that's just where, to me, like there's just so much inspiration to be drawn from this process. So
yeah. And one of the things, and I just realized that I've got my good friend Will Cole's car keys in my pocket, and
come on in, Will.
We're gonna throw it to him.
There we go.
Because Will's
ball game.
Will's heading over to the Texas ball game. Are you guys going?
I think he's going, and then I don't know. I mean, there he goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
It's all good.
The baseball player subbed in for the baseball fan.
Yeah, I think he might have a couple extra seats if you want to head over after this.
That's all right.
But we're going to go to dinner anyways.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I'm happy to be here. Like, ultimately, this is just such a good vibe overall. Like, it's funny because you see all the sponsors on the drop cloth or whatever, all these really cool companies, all these really cool people. It's not just an email. It's not just at Satoshi Labs. It's not just at whatever. It's like, hey, here's Andrew, right?
Right.
Like, here's Lisa, like
right.
And then, hey, here's Svetsky on his like whatever, like permatan like travelogue he's on right now too. Like all these people are here. It's a great vibe. So I wouldn't miss this. You can't miss stuff like this if you have the opportunity to go.
Yeah, and a couple of things.
Absolutely.
Just when you get around Bitcoiners too, they talk about building.
Mm-hmm.
They talk about building. They talk about like what they're working on, because building doesn't just mean, we had Chad Harris from Riot, who's talking about building a mine that's a little bit more tangible. You're building mines,
mm-hmm.
But you're also working on a 501c4 C4.
Yep, C4.
And you wrote a book with Jimmy and Annalise, who you also gave a talk with, that nobody, at least that I recall, talked about price, right?
Right.
And that's
I
what
don't
you
think so.
notice if you come to BitDevs or you get together with Bitcoiners, is focus on moving the ball forward.
Right.
Yep.
And just, like, honestly, it was humbling, like having, Brady, I called you last week. You came down to help MC a couple talks and do this and just be here. Marty Bent, Matt Odell helped MC. I'm just kind of like trying to think about all the different people who came through.
Yeah,
Jack
they got a
Mallers
lot
gave-
of stage time. Yeah, and I forgot Jack was here.
Jack
He was
Mallers.
electric.
It feels like forever ago, but Jack Mallers was here. Jimmy Song, CJ, you came. Annalise, NVK
From Canada.
from CoinKite from Canada.
Yeah.
Nick Newman from Casa.
Yep.
Will gave a talk from Unchained. Miles Suter, Lisa Nygett, like it just Rockstar, everyone. Like we did 2 hours of mining. Gideon Powell, Griffin Habe finished us off, but Drew Armstrong from Cathedra, Ryan Leachman from J, Justin Ballard from J, and of course Chad Harris. But it was just remarkable that all those people. And one of the coolest things though was that Senator Lummis came.
Yeah.
and hung out.
And just hung out.
She was here all day.
She was here all
And
day,
she was
and she listened to
listening
talks.
and watching
And-
and talking and asking questions and
just so refreshing.
Yeah.
That that she's a senator, U.S. senator.
Yeah.
And the attention wasn't. She didn't want it on her. She wanted to come and learn from the community.
Yep.
She's obviously or not obviously, she's a very important advocate for Bitcoin in the U.S. Senate, and to come here to Austin and invest as much time and just want to learn.
Yeah.
And she's been crucial for us as for our C4 because her office is effectively kind of like the Bitcoin Commons of DC, right? Because she is pro Bitcoin. Because she's studied it, her office, very few other senators are sort of like outspokenly for it, right?
Yeah.
So when we go to visit, and we're going to go to these meetings, and we go Tuesday through Thursday, we do a happy hour, and we're like meeting all these different senators and congressmen and stuff. Her office is always like a stopping point. It's like, hey, it's like the post office. Hey, we've got some books. Can we grab some books? We're going to go here, go there. And she's working on a really big bill right now. So I don't know how many people have actually seen it. Jimmy and I got to do a walkthrough with her legal team a couple months ago on it as they were kind of fleshing out some of the different things. And it's going to be very good for Bitcoin, I think, number one, because it's going to get everybody talking about it. When you propose a bill on the Senate floor, they have to talk about it, right? They have to talk about it. They have to study it. So you're going to get hundreds of staffers reading this bill. You're going to get dozens of senators reading this bill. It's focused on Bitcoin. It's focused on crypto assets. It's focused on getting the definitions right so that we don't have another shenanigan like the infrastructure bill where they're like trying to sneak in like these weird little like pork things. It's all just about digital assets. That's it, right? Strong definitions, strong direction. And I think like she hasn't come out with it yet. So I think, which is to me a good thing because she's not rushing it. If going to her personality, she's not like a fame seeker in that regard. Like a lot of politicians you see, like you say, it has to be the spotlight on them.
Right.
She's not like that. She's modest and sitting in the middle of the room, just kind of hanging out. I got to see her give a talk last month, and she crushed it up at Jackson Hole. It's awesome. But the bill is going to be great, and I'm really excited because our book is going to be in the sort of the Lummis library. So when people from other things, I think it's like a good,
Hold it up.
There you go, Bitcoin and the American Dream. It's a good first book for people, especially in politics, to read because it's very narrow. It like literally it's very short, and it also focuses on a bunch of different like let's say use cases or whatever and things that maybe you might not consider because so many people go into the Bitcoin Standard or like I would say a heavier book with more like emphasis on price or more emphasis on this massive shift in the world economy. And this is more like, hey, this is how it can help Main Street. Right. This is how it can help people of color. This is how it can help disenfranchised people. This is how it can make America better against the yuan or something like that. And so all those things are like, like really quick breeze through if you're a Senate staffer. And then if like you like it, then you're going to be like, oh, I need to read Gradually and Suddenly. I need to read Layered Money. I need to read Thank God for Bitcoin, Bitcoin Standard, Fiat Standard, whatever else. And then you do your deep dive from there, like on your own. Because it's hard to like hand someone 4,000 pages and be like, this is everything you need to be a Bitcoin expert. Like, see you tomorrow. Like, it's not going to happen, you know? So that's the modesty, I think, is really like the leading indicator of what we need.
It's so true. Yet they shove around 12,000 page bills all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is great. It's about 60 pages. It goes through these brief chapters. So yeah, if this is thrown on a Senate staffer's desk, there's
They have
something
time.
you could read this on a commute back home from
Yeah,
Capitol
it's
Hill.
almost like if you are too lazy not. Well, we know there's a lot of bad, inefficiencies. We'll
Sure.
just say in
Inefficiencies.
DC.
Yeah.
But that is something that that is a must read, because not doing it, I would look at as, it's like, this is extremely relevant, and it's made very accessible for that audience, and bringing someone like Senator Lummis here to sit and learn from the community, engage, like, that is what this is about, and like having more people do that our goal is. I forgot to mention Nick Carter came.
And he brought his
this is
mustache.
Nick
which
Carter.
is
And he
great.
brought his mustache all the way
Nick
from
Carter just walked
Miami.
in.
Sorry to butt in.
No, Nick, thank you for coming to Austin for the Bitcoin Takeover.
It was my absolute pleasure. I stayed for 4 hours. It's worth it every minute.
Appreciate it.
See you, Nick.
I also forgot Michael Goldstein, Pierre, and Andrew Polstra, a few others, but
It was a wild lineup. I don't know.
It was a wild lineup, but-
your Rolodex is pretty solid for like.
I mean, like, no,
last minute.
it's humbling.
Oh,
like
gotta
18
throw it
days.
together.
Yep.
But we want all of those type of people to come here. And one thing that happened, and I probably have different political views than the current mayor, but when the current mayor came, we had gotten wind that they were working on some cryptocurrency / Bitcoin announcement. And I sent a text, got to people quickly, was like, before you do anything, you should engage with the Bitcoin community. And the mayor came, and sometimes it's just about creating opportunities and asking. But that what we expect to do by creating this space to not only create content, co-work, be around each other, have events, is we give people the opportunity on their time to come engage.
Yeah.
And that the best thing that people can do, like Senator Lummis demonstrated today, is come and learn.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than be in the show or the center, which oftentimes people want to understand what senators have to say, it's a two-way street. And it was just it was really refreshing. And Senator Lummis is a good friend, obviously. Will Cole's got a relationship there, but still, even still, I think it was a demonstration of leadership.
Yeah, and one of the things
Absolutely,
that
yep.
when people are learning about Bitcoin, I think, and we all experience this because I think we're all passionate about helping our friends and helping new people. We're probably like orange pilling our Lyft and Uber drivers and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like I am all the time, constantly. I'm like you have Cash App, do you have Strike? Like, how do you do it? I'm like, if you sign up, you get $5, right? Here you go. Like you could DCA on Swan. There's these opportunities that we have, and we learn kind of like a toolkit, right? Like an orange pilling toolkit.
Right.
And I think that's one of the funny things is like as a sales perspective, because I have to sell cars to mine fiat, right? So I can buy more Bitcoin. You get this sort of patience with the process, and you avoid the kind of instant red button, have fun staying poor, if you know that they don't have traction on it yet. Because you can kind of like push on it, touch on it, ask a question, see how they're getting along with it or whatever. And then you can kind of work your way, pull the string a little bit at a time. And I think that's one of the most essential things is learning that patience. And most people don't have that patience. But when you bring in the top level people, I think the top level people all have that patience. They all have the patience to kind of walk people down the aisle and say, okay, listen, this is aisle number 1. This is 21 million. This is aisle number 2. This is divisibility. This is aisle number 3. This is SHA-256, or this is mining, or whatever else. And then you can make all these cases for it. And the world needs Bitcoin right now, and we're seeing that. Like 6 months ago, we didn't have Ukrainian refugees, right? We didn't have an invasion in Russia. We didn't have oil prices going out of control, gas prices
We
going
didn't
out of
have
control.
normal Canadian citizens getting cut off from their entire life savings for donating $50.
Right, exactly. So we're seeing all these use cases, like suddenly, I'd say gradually, then suddenly.
Maybe it's sort of gradual for a little while.
It's accelerating.
It seems like
It
happened all of a sudden.
seems to be getting into the suddenly phase. And so I think, when we talk about number go up, a lot of people, like, I think they go for the number that they're seeing as the quote, like this Bitcoin scoreboard as the price. But it really, to me, is the user base, right? And user engagement. And it's like, I think when you become a real Bitcoiner, it's like the node count is important, right? It's not just, how much Bitcoin do you have? It's like, do you run your own node? Do you have multi-sig? Do you have a DCA? Do you have an auto DCA, right? So that you can't even like screw it up,
right?
And all these other levels. And one thing that I talk to people all the time is like, you don't necessarily put it all in one place. And having them sort of discover these little, like this onion as it opens up, or this flower as it opens up, to say that Bitcoin can be all these different things. And more and more, the more people I meet, the more I realize that it's not just nerds, it's not just mining. You know what I mean? It's liberty, it's freedom of speech, it's uncensorable, and those things are all super duper important because we're now seeing exploitive governments, totalitarian governments, like strip the rights away from people, often without any criminal charges being filed or anything like that even, right?
Yeah.
So
No due process.
Yeah, and like with millions of people fleeing like Ukraine, like I think I read something today, a quarter of the people from Ukraine have fled. A quarter of the people have fled. The country, right? Like regardless of how many millions of people that is, that's like a quarter is a big percentage of the population, right? So it's just
in a matter of months.
Yeah, like
months.
in weeks.
6
like,
weeks or
yeah,
I don't even know.
Exactly. So that type of stuff
just on that point, like when they're doing that, and this came up a couple times today, but it's just go, right? It's like go, ask questions later, leave everything else behind because your life's at risk.
Yep.
And Bitcoin enables that in a way that's fundamentally different.
Yeah.
That you don't have to leave everything behind. That you can actually take value that you've stored in the world.
You can run a lot faster.
Way.
Yeah.
And ultimately, I think a lot of us think that the type of shit that's happening in the world would happen a lot less frequently if people had better economic incentives delivered through a sound money. But even still, doesn't fix everything in the world. But in these cases, with Canada, prevents people being able to seize your funds just because you have a different political view. And if you got to get up and go, that you can move your value and take your value with you through Bitcoin in a way that you otherwise could not or couldn't previously.
Right.
So
yeah, it's something that I think like, the sort of meme of come to get rich and then stay for the revolution. Right. That's something that I've heard before. I've heard people say stuff like that about Bitcoin. And I think, individually you put your own mask on first, right? Like, the oxygen mask, like you're like, oh, there's smoke. I have to figure something out. You secure your life vest, right? So you have your Bitcoin, you have your savings plan, your multi-sig, your security setup, whatever it is. And then the first thing you do is like the people you care about, the people that are immediately in your orbit, you want to help them, you know? And the longer you're in it, and the more you're broadcasting to the people you're with or whatever, then the more you're able to affect a wider radius, and then you're able to like get these key people in your life to kind of trigger them. So like this is like a Swan shameless plug or whatever, but the Bitcoin benefit plan is an example of that. So a new thing they're rolling out that Corey got me into like a conversation. I said, yeah, let's do it. So we're doing it at the dealership now.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah, so we're actually we're giving Bitcoin to our employees. We're giving $50 in Bitcoin a month to our employees. I don't think that's like a doxable offense in terms of a number to throw out there, but just to give them a taste. And we're using Swan, and I think it's cool. And the cool thing was I had a lot of employees come up to me and they're like, well, I already have a Swan account. And I was like, all right,
nice.
Awesome.
I love it.
So now you get a bonus. But the thing is that like we do need to hyper Bitcoinize the population. Maybe not the price yet, like the price can kind of lag where it is and kind of hang out. But if we get 40, 50, 60 million Bitcoiners in America, in a short order.
Yeah.
And then America, probably Texas, leading that charge, of course, thanks to Mayor Lewis here, leading that charge of like, hyper Bitcoinizing the population. And that's the number go up that we really need to all focus on. And we can. And we just have to make sure that we're not shadow banned on Twitter, or we need to like, publish on other platforms or whatever else. And just keep it up and keep the ball rolling.
Just keep people coming through the Bitcoin Commons and also expanding this idea.
Yeah.
Right? And it's kind of like that recognition that Bitcoin's important, that when people come together and share ideas and be around each other, Like part of it is the sharing of ideas, part of it is the collaboration, but the other part is the energy that each person receives, and that's an individual benefit. And that we have different ways, we have redundancies, we have ways to communicate and collaborate, and that when we have these type of things in person, that those supplement them, and the more that we do them, the better it is, the more we accelerate the proliferation and adoption of Bitcoin. But we also want, as much as I kid about Austin being the Bitcoin capital world, which it is,
It's hard to argue with right now.
and that Texas is the Bitcoin mining capital world, it's with the recognition that every city is going to be a Bitcoin city in the future.
They're going to have to be.
And that we want, speaking on behalf of all people of Austin, we want the same thing to happen elsewhere, right?
Sure.
And it's why, like I went to Nashville last week for the Bitcoin meetup that BitKite, old BitKite that he's building there, and went up to Chicago BitDevs to support Rockstar, and Rockstar's down here, and gets Jack to come give a talk too. That the Bitcoin community is extremely generous with their time for people that want to know and want to learn and invest their own time, and that when we put this together, and when we Swan is part of that, you're part of that, making the effort, that then others see this vision, they're like, oh, you mean if we just get a few companies together and create a space, we can do this too? Yes.
Yeah, because this could be, we should have something like this in Los Angeles or the Bay Area or whatever.
Yeah, I know Corey wants to work on something too. I think he's been inspired by what's going on here. We just got a actual physical space, the first physical Swan office.
Yeah, there's a studio too developing, right? There's a
studio.
Can I talk about that or not talk about
putting
that?
a studio together? Yeah, sure. But we have our first little foothold in meet space in terms of Swan office, and it would be I think we need to put something together that's more community oriented space, and would love to be a part of it. Yeah,
because I think right now a lot of the meetups, other than this one, they're taking place at third-party sites, right? They're not taking place at a Bitcoin-related company at all. They're at a brewery or at a barbecue place or whatever, which is great, but it doesn't kind of hubify the city, the way this can. And I think if we look at it to say broadly, you have these strikes in Chicago. You guys are here. Swan's in LA for the most part. There's companies in Miami. I know Bitcoin Magazine's in Nashville.
Yep.
So you got a bunch of different I would say fairly central places where you could have these magnetic effects. And we've been talking to a lot of people as we've been traveling, just individually. I'm sure. I know that there's a DC area one that's going to start up soon.
Nice.
Because there's a lot of really good Bitcoiners in the DC area. Which would be great for us because when we're going to visit people in Congress and stuff, trying to orange pill, like I said earlier today, we just need to orange pill the 450 or give or take. Yeah,
senators.
That's about it. It's 400 or 500 key people in DC. If we orange pill them,
I've got a theory. It's not 400 or 500, 10. We have to convince 10 people.
Okay.
5 red senators, 5 blue senators.
Okay.
I wanted to get into actually.
Okay.
All you need to do is create gridlock, because all Bitcoin needs to do to dominate and benefit all of our lives is just have politicians not screw it up.
Not get overly politicized.
And that our genius of our system of governance in America is the system of gridlock.
It allows for gridlock because it means that you can have a loud minority object hard enough to something, criticize something, and block it, and then sort of change the minds, because you need to have, especially the Senate, because it is very even, because every state has only 2 senators, so there's no majority because New York has more people, California has more people, or whatever. So I think that's an interesting take. I think Bitcoin is not a party, and people that try to make it partisan, it really kind of drains, I think, the momentum from the movement. We do need both sides. We do, realistically.
Just today we had Mayor Adler, very liberal mayor of the city of Austin. We have Senator Lamas from the state of Wyoming.
Right.
That I think that when people see Bitcoin, they start talking about the fixed supply of Bitcoin. There's a more generally direct connection, probably in a conservative's mind, that it will be harder to print money, it will be harder to have endless debt. But when people figure out Bitcoin, and this is why I think the title of your book, Bitcoin and the American dream and transcending the political divide, something along
Yes.
those lines.
Yep.
Is so important because it's like when we all when the conservative figures out that they like Bitcoin because we aren't going to have like out of control debt and deficits,
Right.
and the liberal likes Bitcoin because they're going to figure out that
Social justice.
people that what's been happening for the last 30, 40 years hurts the people on the lowest end of the spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
and that Bitcoin levels the playing field and gives people a way to save their value. Then they're going to look at each other and be like, oh, maybe we don't hate each other.
Yep.
Right.
Maybe if we both like the same thing,
We like one
maybe
thing.
we like each other.
We can agree on liking this one thing first, right?
I mean, that's happened
And
to
then-
me many times on a personal level.
Oh, yeah.
Bitcoiners I've met who, I would have previously not even probably spoken to, because if they based on some tweets or something like that, because of hyper partisan political issues out there. That's why I think it's so important for us to avoid hyper partisan, partisan. What was the word? Politicizing, I guess.
Yeah, partisanship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bitcoin, because it could actually delay or affect or like diminish the way that Bitcoin is adopted. Of course, Bitcoin's inevitable. I completely agree with that. It's just
But
a fact of like monetary truth,
Right,
and
but
math.
if it's
But
if it's inevitable in 20 years,
it's the way it's adopted.
yeah,
right?
exactly. And if it takes 20 years instead of 12 years, instead of 6 years, instead
Exactly.
of 50 years, these are all different outcomes because we're all going to be at different ages.
So say it becomes a hyperpartisan issue, blue is completely against Bitcoin, red's completely for Bitcoin, and there's this battle that happens and nothing ever happens, But if you have the bipartisan sort of blockade going, then nothing like bad legislation can't get passed. If you have it hyperpartisan, then let's say
Good or bad
there's a
could get
blue
passed.
there's a blue sweep, then you
Yeah.
could
Well, my
Carte
view of like
blanche on
why we
Bitcoin
just
legislation.
need 5 Democrats and 5 Republicans is like everybody else is going to be polarized. They're going to be on opposite sides,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you get 10 people, they can stop anything,
yeah.
you know, because the other 90 aren't going to agree on anything.
And there's going to be partisanship in any sort of multi-use bill or whatever. But the way I've been thinking about it a lot, maybe because I come to Texas a lot, I'm kind of on this carnivore diet. But I think of it like a lot of people explain the political spectrum as a strictly left and right thing, right? So they think about like a straight axis like that, and that's it. But the way I see it, because the way the media sort of acts as this gravitational lens, and it bends reality, right? So you end up getting the far left lefties and the far right righties,
Yes.
like these horns. And then, so it's like a bull, right? So you have like the bull horns, like it's got like a water buffalo or whatever. It's got like the top of the head, and then it kind of slopes down a little bit, right? And then at the very end, you get these pointy things. And those are like, that's the clickbait.
Yep.
It's the super partisan, super lefty, super righty, literally lobbing verbal grenades at each other across the meat and the brain of everything else, which is the majority.
Yeah.
And the majority just stays duck and cover, and then it creates not just on a DC basis, but on a total like citizen basis. We as moderate people generally like start ducking down because we're like, oh, if I stand up and raise my hand to say I like this one thing that this one guy said, I'm gonna get a grenade from the other side, even if I'm like only 2% off the exact middle
Yeah.
of the omni. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so I think that's where like that's where the media really distributes like things on an uneven basis is the safest way to say it. You could say it's unfair or whatever, but if we plop the Bitcoin right on the head, right in the meat of where the bell curve is, in terms of the political spread, R
Right.
plus 3, D plus 3, whatever, then you have this kind of collaborative conversation that can happen between those 5 people on each side, and then eventually that becomes 6 on each side, 10 on each side, whatever, and then they like start looking and they're like, you know what, hey, we're really sorry about what she said, hey, we're really sorry about what he said, like let's not involve them in this process, like let's just, then what they're going to do is they're going to starve out the edges on their own internally on their internal politics, and then they're going to write those bipartisan bills or whatever, and that's really where the positive things happen, in my opinion. So I see that's like the real vision right there of putting it in the middle, and then, but it also, if you think about it, just the outsized attention that the pointy dumb edges get,
Well,
and how much that hurts everybody as a result. That's what we
like
need to.
a microcosm of it, not on the political side, but and one thing. So I brought up PCU today, and nobody had seen it. Do you?
Yeah. I
Have you
had
guys-
not, but I want to see.
Have
it.
you guys seen that?
That's like from 1999.
Yeah, I thought it was like
a
a
college movie.
I thought it was a
right?
classic. But
I wouldn't say classic.
I mean, but like it
you know.
describes the same thing where like everyone hated each other and then they kind
Yeah.
of like figure out that they don't hate each other.
Yeah.
But we had a panel with Lisa Nygett, Miles, and Rockstar
Yeah.
talking about, and there's apparently some lightning feud recently. I'm not super aware of it, but like I was
Because
in,
there's a couple
I was
implementations
in,
of
yeah,
Lightning.
yeah, I was
so everyone's
intending
got
for the
this-
talk to be very focused on like what they were actually building,
Mm-hmm.
and like Odell just goes straight in with like in trying to get into the controversy, and when they're in person, like they dealt with it like
Yeah, smooth.
mature adults are like they
Yeah.
weren't taking Odell's bait, but what it just demonstrates is when people are in person,
Yeah.
they
Treat each other like humans.
They treat each other like humans.
It's like a great concept.
And we when we live in this world where like people can just go into a town square online and fucking yell at everybody,
right.
that's what talks. It's like it's not the sane people.
Right.
It's like the most active or like in the
The squeakiest wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I'm just pumped. I'm a little bit fried, but
But now
getting all these
we
people together.
get like 2 weeks off, and then we spin it all up again in Miami,
Ooh,
right?
shit.
The
The big
big
one.
next thing. is
I got to go to
Miami.
Houston next week for the Houston Bitcoin meetup.
There you
So
go.
yeah, so that's the thing. Like Parker travels, he's racking up like miles on the SUV, just literally like ripping down the corridor
Yeah,
because
yeah.
he's orange pilling all of Texas. So he's
Right.
up in Dallas, getting all like the sort of traditional finance bros and stuff like that, and like the really I would say like the khaki pants, high net worth
Yeah.
guys, right? And then
Little
Houston's like
square.
Houston's like all these oil dudes, and having gone to these different meetups, and like he does the Bitcoin in one lesson thing, which is great, and it's
Then Austin's like more politics heavy.
I'd say it's more like developer.
Developer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like
Developer.
younger demographic tech. Houston, it's like workmen.
Uh-huh.
Entrepreneurial workmen like
belt buckles,
belt
boots.
buckles, some hats.
Definitely hats.
Dallas more square, but I run back the Texas or the Houston and Austin meetups are back to back weeks, third Thursday, fourth Thursday, so it's like the Texas two step.
And you're grinding
play
it out,
around.
Parker.
He's the hardest working man in Texas on for sure in that
Love
regard.
it.
That's great.
While I have you here, I know that you just know the markets and you've been studying them for a long time. You worked in trading at a trading desk for quite some time. Can you just give me a rundown on where you think we are now? I mean, I haven't heard you talk about it much since all of this shit went down.
Yeah.
Would love to hear your take on.
So
What's going on?
I think that the Fed is forever in a catch-22.
Mm-hmm.
They've been printing a shit ton of money, which has been causing massive asset inflation as well as now real goods and services. CPI was 7.5% in January, February. We all know it's like 20% in terms of things we actually need. And they're starting to signal, or maybe they just did raise interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
It is the exact same thing, I always think it's like does not matter what happens in the short term. The short term is important to be aware of, but what will happen in the long term is exactly what happened last time.
Yeah.
They will try to raise interest rates just as they did. They will try to unwind the balance sheet just as they did. And when they walk into a buzzsaw, which they will again, because they cannot take out the dollars that they put in,
Yeah.
that they're going to have to print even more money.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so where we're at right now is the Fed is in that phase of thinking that they can quote tighten, and there's no, it's like the pulling the thread. You can't push the thread, and then like trying to slowly unwind is not the same as slowly moving more dollars in the system. Realistically, it's not slow. They've literally printed $4.9 trillion in 2 years, and just last month they printed 120 billion. Insane.
Yeah, so that's not really.
So that's
it's-
not slowly pulling on the thread, but like
Yeah.
it does have an incremental impact.
Yep.
That is the gradually part. But that when you start to tighten, everyone runs for the door immediately. Like they don't wait for the Fed to get to what they were planning to do 24 months out.
Yeah.
And so when it's like basically the tail wagging the dog, where the market's like, yeah, you're gonna try that. We're gonna go sell all of our credit, and then the credit markets are gonna try to collapse, and the Fed's gonna have to print a shit ton of money to buy the credit so that the credit system doesn't collapse. And either way, either scenario, it ends in Bitcoin.
Yep.
It ends in people figuring out that they cannot continue to go contribute value to others around them and value to the real world and have that value deteriorate rapidly. And the more they see that in front of their face at prices rapidly moving at the grocery store, at the gas station, it's a perfect storm for Bitcoin. So I think where we're at, they're trying to quote tighten. They are going to break some financial markets, credit markets. There will likely be some interim volatility, and then they'll have to print a lot more money.
So
the on-air sign is not working.
It's not. Yeah. We need it lower eye level.
It needs to be at eye level.
The question I have though, not about people interrupting us sporadically. It's the balance sheet. Okay, so the Fed's balance sheet is like at $9 trillion right now, or something like that.
8.95.
So how do they? So like, this is the thing that I was trying to explain to somebody, but this is literally something that you're like professionally qualified to answer. How does the Fed actually unwind the balance sheet? Because there's no takers for that debt, right? There's no I'm not buying.
Well, so think about it this way: when they take the dollars out of the system, nothing changes about the amount of debt,
right?
And so the liabilities continuing to exist. The asset prices have to come down. So like as an example, when they stop buying debt, the high yield markets and the investment grade credit markets start to sell off. So it doesn't matter if the Fed is going to raise interest rates 25 basis points. The market gets ahead of them. The high yield markets have the like bond value have been sold as like the perception of, even before there are actually fewer dollars, just a perception of that people are selling high yield credit as an example. High yield credit index is down 5 or 6%. The average duration of a high yield bond is like 4 or 5 years. So if you amortize 5% over 4 or 5 years, that's like 4 interest rate hikes that have just happened in 2 weeks, right? Wow. So that there are always buyers, but the asset prices come down, and they come down very quickly because the market is not just acting on what's there today, but in what the Fed is signaling it's going to do, and they're not going to wait. Like in this game of musical chairs, somebody can sit down first, and the same with Bitcoin. Like someone can choose to go first, but think about it as right now. I think this is the best way to think about it. There's 88 to 89 trillion of debt. There's $9 trillion, 8.95. When the Fed starts taking that money out of the system, same number of liabilities, but there's fewer dollars to go around, and the market starts figuring out we're far more than $1 short. We're like 90% too few dollars. And they start all running for the exit at the same time because
and the musical chairs is the exit,
yeah.
Not necessarily like, oh, I'm so happy to be here before everybody else. It's like I need to get the hell out of here before the building burns down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's what's super interesting. I think like looking at the broad scope of things with all the world events that we have going on, it's like, oh, refugee money, Bitcoin, equity markets maybe being like overly inflated, too volatile, Bitcoin, deplatforming people, Bitcoin, censorship, yoinking people's bank accounts, freezing them with no trial, Bitcoin. There's all these things that are like, Bitcoin is the answer to all these different questions, but some people it's like so in their face and they're refusing it. They're like, no, that's too easy. They don't understand the Occam's razor thing to say that the easiest solution or the most elegant solution is actually the one we should be pursuing, or it's the best one or most likely to help. And I think that's where philosophically the people that get it, they're so entrenched in getting it that they know it. It's like you can't shake somebody from that reality once they've seen it. Like it's like
you can't unsee it.
You can't unsee your naked grandma. And effectively that's what the balance sheet looks like in the debt. it's terrifying. It's like because it's something you don't want to. You can't unsee it once you've seen it. That's the whole point. And it's like, but so you need to really cleanse your spirit. After that, and to me, that's how sketchy and like scarred I am from looking at the macro picture right now. Because everyone's like, I had a congressional person text me today, and her question was, "Hey, do you think we're headed for a recession?" And I was like, "How could we not be headed for a recession with all these events? We're headed for starvation if the wheat doesn't get to people. Rice prices are going to shoot up. Almond flour is going to shoot up. Millet, corn, everything's going to shoot up. They're going to run out of food to feed people in all these countries."
That's a good point. and this may be a good transition. Yesterday, I mean, these days are running again. Maybe Wednesday, I went out and bought like 1 million Satoshis worth of beef from a rancher directly for Bitcoin,
Okay.
and we're gonna go cook it for all of us. There's, taking all the people who contributed today to go cook it up at Marty Bent's house. But like, you're talking about that with like the rice and shit. It's like, we're going and orange pilling our cattle ranchers that have ranches in the city.
Yeah.
Because like, if the shit hits the fan, it's like, yeah, we got Bitcoin. We'll sell you.
Because our money's good.
Beef.
Yeah.
Our money's
Yeah.
good. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
And NVK can teach us how to do that over ham radio. So then we're good to go.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I do need to go buy some things at the grocery store before we head over and grill steaks for 30 people.
Right.
Let's go.
But one thing that I wanted to mention that I forgot to mention was, how about the national anthem today?
Oh yeah,
That was also good.
rad.
We had a Jimi Hendrix-esque Woodstock style guitar solo national anthem, which
By
I thought
our
was,
boy Matt Snow.
that was fantastic.
Austin local, TVP, investing in Bitcoin
Owned
infrastructure.
it. So good.
Um,
And speaking of, like, all this is going to be on the web, on like Bitcoin
Yeah.
Commons. Does Bitcoin Commons have a website?
we got the
It's only
URL. We
Nice.
haven't.
Haven't populated yet.
YouTube, whatever. I highly recommend watching the content though, and
Yeah.
check out the national anthem. It's pretty dope.
Yeah, we'll get that national anthem. We're gonna make that a mainstay of BitDevs. Maybe not every time, so we can keep people on their toes.
Yeah, that
But
was
it
massive
was
energy.
a good touch,
Yeah.
I can say that
and it was
as
Matt's idea.
as someone that doesn't have a cowboy hat, also I would just say that at some point there needs to be a sort of cowboy hatting across the BitDev space here. in
That
Austin.
was actually something that happened. It's crazy. Last night was BitDevs. Feels like so long ago. But so Justin, the godfather of Austin BitDevs, the Minnesota Miracle Man, as we call him here.
Justin Moon.
Yeah.
Just a moon.
He had this idea that he was like, we need to start dressing nicer. And, harkening back to those, remember like the Natural, where like people go to the ball game and they're dressed up in suits. He's like, we should amp this up.
Class it up a little bit.
Well, so he shared this idea with Buck, or it was really he and Ben Carmen's idea. I think it was Ben Carmen's idea, shared with Justin. Justin shares it with Buck, and they all talk about it. Buck shows up in a beautiful suit and tie. Justin forgets about it, and so does Ben Carman. And so then Ben Carman puts on a cowboy hat and boots. He's like, I'll do like Texas chic. So that was just last night, but yeah.
It's good stuff.
All right,
good
so we're off for steaks, and then
Steak
next
time. I mean, we're in
time-
Texas.
Next time up is Miami, I guess.
It was like
right?
freshly butchered ranch beef
Bought for
at
Bitcoin.
Marty Bent's house, and he's letting us do this in his studio. What
Yeah.
a guy! Like,
That's what the Commons is about.
right? This is what it's
Yeah.
about. This is what it's about. Parker, thanks for having us and hosting this event and organizing it all. And this will certainly not be my last trip to the Commons.
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming down. CJ, thank you for coming down. You're here all the time. You're practically part of the community. And what does Marty say?
Thanks.
Peace and love, freaks.
Thanks, freaks.